Let's talk about Higurashi no Nakakoro ni Go Onidamashi-hen. Now, many people, especially based on the first episode, seem to think that this was just going to be a simple remake of Onikakushi-hen from the original Higurashi anime. And I don't exactly blame them for thinking this, I just blame them for being really smug about it. But if you look back at the original anime, the very opening scene is exactly the same. You have Keiichi beating Reina and Mion to death with a baseball bat. And in the original anime, that was actually a preview of things to come. That would actually happen in Onikakushi-hen. This time around, things will actually end up a bit different, so I don't know why they even threw this scene in there. Maybe it was just a flashback, maybe it's just something to hype up the fans, but in any case, that's not how things will end up playing out here. But the very first episode, it does track along the very first episode of Onikakushi-hen very similarly. And there are some minor changes. I mean, some of the games they're playing at the schoolyard, they are a little bit different. But at the end of the day, I would say there are no substantial changes in episode 1 until the very, very end, when you have Rika looking out over the garbage dump with her mystic eyes. Now, if you're a fan of the original anime, you're thinking to yourself, alright, this is totally a spoiler. Why would they throw it in here? It's a total disservice to new viewers. But I don't even necessarily think that's the case, because Higurashi has a lot of really crazy expressions, crazy eyes. A new viewer might just not think that much of it, thinking that this is what happens to everyone on the show. They have all these crazy looks on their faces, no big deal. But of course, if you're familiar with the original, you know that Rika has a special role in this anime. She has these mystical powers, and so you're thinking, okay, this is kind of stupid. Why would they put this in here if it's a simple remake? And that should get you thinking that perhaps this is not a remake after all. And actually, something that happens next, at the very, very end of the first episode, you have them playing the ending theme as Higurashi no Nakakoro ni by Eiko Shimamiya, the original opening theme from the first anime. And that actually got me thinking, okay, if this is a remake, then why are they putting in this kind of throwback to the original anime? Why are they not sort of distancing themselves? Why are they not treating this as something totally new? So of course here I was not completely convinced that it was a remake, but I wasn't completely convinced the other way either. I was just willing to sit by and watch what happens next before smugly proclaiming my opinions on the internet. Episode 2 starts out with some really new material, and yet you still had some idiots on the internet acting like this was still just a remake, and how could they put all these spoilers in there, and being really stupid. I can't really explain why. But anyway, you have Rika waking up back in her sort of limbo fragment world, and she wakes up to Hanyu's face. This sort of implies that for some reason or another, Rika's been killed, or maybe she died of natural causes or something like that. We don't know. And this new version of Hanyu actually can't answer that because she's seriously powered down. Of course, from Higurashi Kai, we knew that her powers were declining over time, and presumably after she won over Takano and everyone else, her powers hit a new low after that. So this time around, the word that they used actually in Japanese was nokori ga. Literally means like remaining scent or something like that. I'd never seen this word before, so I had to look it up. But yeah, all she can tell Rika, not really tell her the cause of her death or anything, but all she can tell Rika is that she has to go back to 1983, June. And Rika's really pissed off about this because she already won, she worked so hard, why does she have to go back to that same world? But at the same time, she's also really confident. She's already won once, she knows who's after her, she's not that girl from before who would just leave everything to fate. She's actually going to be proactive, she's going to handle things, she's going to win once again. And this makes you wonder, why isn't she more proactive for the rest of this arc? It just seems like for the rest of Onidamashi-hen, she's just kind of hanging out in the same world from Onikakushi-hen, except once in a while she's encouraging her friends to believe in each other and to trust their feelings and to do all that, you know, all the lessons from Higurashi Kai. So there's no real sense of urgency. Why isn't she going after Takano? Why isn't she just sort of retracing her steps from Matsuri Bayashi-hen? There's no real answer for this at this point, and perhaps this is her last world. I mean, when they were living in Matsuri Bayashi-hen, they treated that as possibly being the last time she might get reincarnated or transported to another world, so I was kind of confused about this. The rest of this arc plays out a lot like Onikakushi-hen until you get to a divergence point when Keiichi actually lets Reina inside of his house. Now, if you think back to Onikakushi-hen, what happens in this scene is that Keiichi is so paranoid about Reina that when Reina tries to enter, he just keeps slamming the door on her fingers until she finally backs down. Well, this time around, Keiichi remembers Rika's words about friendship and trust and decides that it's better to let Reina inside. So things look like they might actually be taking a turn for the better, until Reina gets to the kitchen and starts unpacking all of her murder weapons, and I am just dying laughing at this point. This whole thing turns into a bloodbath, and the next thing you know, Keiichi wakes up in the hospital. Now here he has a few interesting conversations. I'd say the most interesting one is with Mion. First thing he does is ask Mion, what happened to Reina? No one's told me so far. And Mion just says in her own words, Reina couldn't be saved. Does that mean Reina died? I wouldn't believe it until I actually see the body. I mean, this is Higurashi we're talking about. Don't believe anything until you see the body, and don't even believe that until you see it through the point of view of an objective, reliable observer. Alright, so the next thing that Mion says is that Rika and Satoko were both killed a day later by the same knife in what seems to be a murder-suicide, although she doesn't believe it, and we shouldn't either, because of course this is Higurashi. You kind of know that people are going after Rika here. Alright, so the final thing that happens here is that Keiichi has a conversation with a really suspicious looking nurse, and the nurse asks him how his symptoms for Hinamizawa syndrome are going, and suddenly Keiichi starts scratches his neck and starts screaming, and here we start to think that perhaps he's having delusions also, because he's also suffering from severe Hinamizawa syndrome. That brings us to the end of Onidamashi-hen. Now this is still the first arc of the new anime, so I'm not going to speculate all that much. It's just that my main concern right now is why isn't Rika playing more of an interventionist role in what's going on? I mean, Hanyu's power is clearly declining, and we don't know how many lives Rika has left, if any. So can she really afford to just sit back and passively encourage her friends to believe in each other? Why doesn't she take much of a more proactive role against the parties that she knows are going to come after her? Also, I want to take a look at the title here, Onidamashi-hen. Clearly, this is a play on Onikakushi-hen from the original anime. And the word damashi in Japanese means tricking, fooling, deceiving, that kind of thing. So what kind of trick is going on here that perhaps I haven't picked up on? If there is some deeper meaning, I am kind of curious about it. And clearly, this is going to be carried over into the next arc as well, which is going to be called Watadamashi-hen. Alright, so that's all for now. If you have any thoughts, please leave them in the comments, and I'll see you after Watadamashi-hen.